Unit 1, Worksheet 4, find the domain and range for each relation. Okay, so domain and range are another way we talk about the x and the y, or the input and the output. So the domain is the x values, and the range is the y values. Okay, so if we have domain, that would be the x values, and range would be the y values. So what we do to write this, we're going to put it in a little bracket here. Actually, it's called a brace. And we just write the x values. And close the bracket. And then the range is just the y values. So same thing on this one. The range would just be, the domain would just be the x values, and the range would be the y values. In the graphing, in the mapping, you would do the same thing. You would just say the domain is 0. Since 0 has two outputs, we might want to put it twice. 0, 0, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way when we do the range, we can also tell from this which one goes with which. It's the same thing. The domain is the x values. So 1, 2, 4, 5. And the range is the y values. 2, 4, 7, 7. All right, now these are a little different because these are now continuous. So we have to use the interval notation. So we're going to say that the domain is, still going to use a bracket, the x value. So x, the smallest x here, it stops right here at -9, and then the biggest x goes to right here at 8. So x is between -9 is less than or equal to, if you remember, we'll do another unit on this later, but just quickly, if this was an open circle, you wouldn't have the equal sign because that point wouldn't count. But since that's a closed circle, it can be equal. So -9 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 8. We'll be doing another review of all these signs later on, but for right now, it's just going to be between the smallest number and the biggest number. So y, smallest y is -7. The biggest y is +6. So the domain is between -7 and +6. So this one, we have our x. The smallest one is -3, and the biggest one is 8. So we do -3 is less than. Now, it's an open circle, so we don't put the equal sign. X is less than or equal to 8. And then y, the smallest one is 4. The biggest one is 1.5. So we're going to do between the smallest one, -4, and the top one is 1.5, but there's not an equal sign there. All right, if we take a look at this next one, we can see, don't Don't be fooled by this. This arrow means it goes on forever and ever. So x, it never stops this way, it never stops that way. So x is all real numbers. And y, even though it's going to take forever and ever and ever for it to go up here, it still does. It's going up forever and ever, and it's going down forever and ever. So the range is also all real numbers. Likewise, this shape here, the arrow means it goes forever and ever in that direction. So x, even though, if x is here, it's going to be way up high. It's still, there's no limit on what x can be. So x is all real numbers. And y is all real numbers. Now this one's a little different. If we take a look at it, the domain, the x values, that goes on forever and ever both ways. So that's all real numbers. But the range isn't. Range is always -4. So y is equal to -4. All right, this one is kind of funny. This is indicating that it's going to keep doing this pattern, not that it's going straight up like that or straight down like that. It's going to keep doing this same pattern, okay? So if it keeps doing this pattern, then x goes on forever and ever and ever. Another way you can write this, all real numbers is fine. Another way that you see it written is x is an element of the real numbers. This means that x is one of the real numbers. Sometimes you're going to see it like that. You can go ahead and write it all real numbers is fine for me. Now y, though, the smallest y ever gets is -3, and the biggest y ever gets is 3. So y is, between, that's not right, between two values. So it's -3 is the smallest value, less than or equal to y, is less than or equal to 3. And we're using the equal sign because it touches -3 and it touches 3.